Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Legends of the Carolinas. I'm Scott Fowler, but today I won't be your host. Instead, you're going to be listening to reporter Alex Zietlow. He's a rising star at the Charlotte Observer who covers multiple sports, and he's also a natural in front of a microphone, which is why I chose him as my replacement today for one of the biggest interviews in Sports Legends history. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Scott, thank you for having me.
Right from the beginning of Sports Legends, Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, was on our very first list as someone we absolutely had to have. But the week he happened to be available coincided with a family obligation I just couldn't miss. So I called in the Cavalry. And the Cavalry in this case is Alex. So for the rest of this episode, I'm going to be a fan, listening to what is a terrific and revealing conversation that you're going to love between Alex Zietlow and Coach K.
Yes, sir. This legend doesn't really need an introduction. Better known as Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski served as an astonishing basketball coach for 47 years and has impacted the game and this state forever.
There it is, the first time I've seen Mike Krzyzewski smile. Final seconds, Jordan without the jumper. It doesn't matter, Duke has won its first national championship.
In his 42 years coaching the Blue Devils, he led the team to 5 national titles, 13 Final Fours, and 1,202 wins, the most all time. As if that was not enough, Coach K was Team USA's head basketball coach in 3 straight Olympic Games, earning gold medals every time. And he has a remarkable story attached to each and every one of his accomplishments. Coach K, welcome to the show.
Thanks for including me. I'm honored to be on and share the spotlight with so many of the great people that you've had on so far.
Absolutely. We are now a little over a year since you coached your final game. So what has Mike Krzyzewski been up to recently?
Yeah, I've been really busy, but the main thing I've been is happy, healthy, really glad. I have no regrets about retiring from coaching. It's the luckiest guy in the world, 47 years. Coaching at my alma mater, West Point, Duke for 42 years, and I coached the U.S. team for 11 years. So I maintain my office at Duke. I have a lifetime contract at Duke as an ambassador for the school. I'm doing a lot of the things that I did when I was a coach, except I don't coach or recruit. But I do a lot of speaking. I've been speaking all over the country for the Washington Speakers Bureau. I have a Sirius XM show that I've had for 18 years. We work more with our nonprofit, the Emily Krzyzewski Center, that services about 2,000 kids here in Durham, and a lot of things for the university. I'm also a professor now at our Fuqua School of Business, where I lecture. And although I've had a 2-decade relationship with them, and, North Carolina is our home, and our 3 daughters and their families live within 10 minutes of us. We have 10 grandkids. They keep you really busy, and we're a close-knit family. So it's been a joyous year, really, and probably done a little bit too much speaking because I've been on the road too much. My wife thinks I'm still recruiting for Duke, I think.
Yeah, you come into this office and you can't help but be reflective. I'm sure you've spent a little bit of this year being reflective as well.
Yeah. I've tried not to be reflective. One thing about anyone who does something pretty well, they form a platform, and that platform can lead to a whole bunch of different things. Hopefully good things. And we get thousands of letters written to us, during a year. Autographs, people wanting advice and all that. And really for about 7 weeks after I retired, I spent with my assistant Jerry answering the thousands of letters. And a lot of them were handwritten and by people that you may have called whose son was struggling with something and you helped them, and they tell you they're 3-4 page written letters. My son's now a lawyer or a doctor or somebody you called someone's husband who was in hospice and 20 years ago. And those were the things I reflected on. And I was amazed. It made me feel good because, we've won a lot, we've lost. But in that case, we've won. And it's kind of cool to be able to think that you've had some positive impact in helping people.
Absolutely. I will ask you to reflect a little bit, just based on the just based on the nature of the questions that I'm about to ask. You grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
The son of Polish immigrants, attended Catholic school. I read somewhere that 8th grade Mike Krzyzewski marched up to his principal at the school that didn't have team sports,
Right.
and asked to assemble a basketball team. And then when that ultimately didn't happen, you assembled an entire league. So I guess my question is, was Mike Krzyzewski a commissioner before he was a player, before he was a coach?
I just wanted to find a place where I could play. I was a good player. And, in Catholic, Chicago's a big Catholic city. It's the second biggest Polish city in the world. And they have a thing called CYO, Catholic Youth Org. And a lot of the parishes and schools had teams. Ours did not. And so I was envious. And so we formed our own team, and we would play those teams. We weren't in a league, but we would play those teams. And from my youngest days, I was kind of a leader. And there was, it was a cool thing. There was no parental involvement. You actually, you could learn how to lead. You could learn how to interact. And it was a beautiful way to grow up. And my buddies and I are still friends. My best friend Mo was just visiting me for a couple days, and we've been friends for 70 years. And because of the relationships that were formed.
How would you describe yourself as a player? And perhaps how would Mo describe you as a player?
Well, Mo would think I'm probably better than I even think I am, because he was that good of a friend. We've been able, whatever happened to one of us happened to the other. Mostly good, sometimes tough things. That's the really test of a true friendship. For me, I was an all-state player at Weber High School and the leading scorer in the Catholic League for 2 years. So I just loved to play. I played all the time, was in the schoolyard all the time. At that time, you didn't have workout coaches or anything like that. And in some respects, that's good, because you were able to develop an imagination when you're out in the schoolyard alone. And you imagined yourself being in, taking the last second shot, making the last second free throw. You might play a whole game, in imagination. And I love that. And I think imagination is so critical for anybody, and what if they can find what they love and imagine, like, doing great things, doing the thing they loved. And I found when I was in high school that the thing I wanted to be was a teacher and a coach. I knew when I was 16 that that's what I wanted to be. And so I really have lived my whole life doing my dream and doing what I love. I've been incredibly fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah. Why not? Why didn't you, as a 16-year-old, want to be on Sports Illustrated wearing a jersey? Why didn't you want to be an NBA player?
Yeah, it was a different time. You're talking about the 1960s. That's a long time, over 50 something years ago. And even when you're good, it wasn't. You have to be really like a freakish athlete to think that you're going to be in the NBA. But I wanted to play college basketball, and I wanted use it as a means to then become a coach. I was recruited late to go to West Point. I was probably going to go to either Creighton or Wisconsin. And my family really put a lot of pressure on me to go to West Point. Their parents were born in Krakow, Poland. and all of a sudden one of their sons has a chance to go to the greatest leadership school in the world. I didn't see it that way. My mom and dad would say, that's where presidents have come. And I said, I don't want to be a president. I want to be a point guard. And, I went because I trusted my parents. And I call it the best decision I never made. But the relationship that I had with my mom and dad has helped me forever. And it really helped me because everything I've done in coaching, leadership, is a result of going to the United States Military Academy and getting that foundation.
So, as you mentioned, you play at West Point. Your playing days end in 1969. You then serve as an officer in the U.S. Army until 1974. Then you join Bob Knight's coaching staff at Indiana for a season. And then this is something I found fascinating. You become a head coach at your alma mater at 28 years old. In today's world, 28 years old would be the youngest Division I college basketball coach. And I know that the times were different, but did you feel young when you took that mantle?
No, I didn't feel young because I was I still feel young, by the way. But no, I thought I was ready. My wife, Mickey, and I got married on graduation day. We've been married now 54 years. We had Debbie a couple of years into our marriage. And I was an Army officer for 5 years. I was a captain in the field artillery. I led men and trained with them. And and then I spent a year going to graduate school trying to get my MBA. I did not get my MBA because I got this opportunity to coach. So I had a vision of and I wanted to get an MBA because I wanted to be a college coach. And I felt running a college basketball program would be like running a business, not just running a high school team. And a high school team would be great, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot more into it. And I really felt I was ready because it was my alma mater. I didn't think anybody would know West Point better than me. And really, a lot of my classmates were coming back to West Point to teach at that time. So we took over a program that was 7-44 for 2 years. So really, the only way to go was up. And so it's a great opportunity. I learned to be a coach. I learned to do everything during my 5 years at West Point. It was a great proving ground for me.
What is everything?
Everything, like painting bleachers, laying carpet, running all over the United States, recruiting, sports information. It's like running a startup company. And they didn't have the resources that an ACC school would have with the many people that would help you in that. So I think it really helped me develop a key word in being a leader, and that's empathy. So when someone was cleaning a floor for me at Duke, I cleaned that floor too. And so it's our floor. When someone, I was very appreciative of all the work that people did to bring about any success that we might have for our program. And there was no entitlement. I know that's a fashionable word and a very appropriate word in today's day and age. And there was no entitlement. And it was earned, prepared, and then appreciated. And I think I've spent my whole career, I know I've spent my whole career feeling that way.
To introduce Mike Krzyzewski, here is his sponsor, the man who coached him at Army and hired him as an assistant at Indiana, Hall of Famer Bob Knight.
Mike always kind of downplayed how good he was as a player. Mike was a very, very good basketball player, and I've heard him say on occasion that in playing for me for 3 years, about midway through the second year, he thought his name was Damn It Mike. It's a real special thing for me to present Mike for induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
There's no greater thing that you could call me but coach. And for a coach to get honored in such a way to come to the Hall of Fame, he or she must have great players and assistants. And so as the train's going in here and we accept this, I say we. I want you all to feel that way. Thank you very much for this.
We'll be right back. Welcome back.
5 years at Army, and then you get introduced as Duke's head basketball coach.
There is no doubt in my mind that Mike is the brightest young coaching talent in America.
It's an honor to be named head basketball coach at Duke, and I hope that the confidence that these people have in me, that you'll see results from it.
The most enduring memory from that introductory press conference, and I'm sure you've had to answer this question a bunch, but the most enduring memory is a reporter asks you to spell your last name.
Yeah.
What else do you remember about that day?
Well, I know it was a surprise to a lot of people, and people said our last year at West Point we were 9-17. We had lost 6 kids through injury, a bunch of different reasons, honor, grades, and but overall we were 73-59, and we took over a program that was 7-44. And I actually thought one of our best years was that year. The year before that, I was offered the Vanderbilt job and turned it down. When I was going for the Duke job, I was offered the Iowa State job. So it wasn't like I wasn't in contention for other really good, but an ACC job was different. And I was appreciative of the trust that Tom Butters, the AD, had in me, and we developed an amazing relationship. And he gave me that opportunity to coach, but he did something else that when everyone gets a certain amount of opportunities, I probably have got more than most, but opportunity that's followed by with belief is better than just opportunity. And in my career here at my time there at Duke, Tom believed in me at 3 critical times, and it paid dividends for me, him, and everybody. But I owe a lot to him.
Still have his baseball card on your desk.
Yeah, he was a minor league, not a major league pitcher until he got hurt. Brilliant guy and tough, but you if you're going into battle, you wanted Tom with you or leading you, and I learned a lot from him, and I'm forever indebted to him. You know, my mom would always tell me, "You're not going to do it alone." It's absolutely right. And at West Point, we're taught, failure's not your destination, but when you get up from a failure, it may be that you don't try to do it alone anymore. Form a team. And then form a team where you have good people on it.
I perhaps might be getting ahead of myself, but you said that Tom believed in you 3 times in your career. What were those 3 times?
Well, the second time, our first 3 years, remember the early, before you were here, the 80s were probably the magical decade of the ACC because guys, Jordan went after 3 years, but almost everybody they stayed for a long. Sampson was 4. There were just 8 teams, so much talent.
For Duke at center, a 6'8" sophomore from Rolling Hills Estate, California, number 21, Jay Billis. For North Carolina at guard, a 6'6" junior from Wilmington, North Carolina, number 23, Michael Jordan. Dean Smith is the coach of the Tar Heels, Mike Krzyzewski for the Duke Blue Devils.
Dawkins inside to Allery. Triple team, and he scored anyway.
He did a great job even getting that ball up. Michael Jordan dropped down inside and had him.
Mark Allery has a dozen, and it's Duke 42, Carolina 34.
So you have to build a program. You have to get a lot of recruits. And our first 3 years, we were 38 and 47. And a lot of people at Duke, the Iron Dukes, they formed a separate entity called the Concerned Iron Dukes. No, it's true. I mean, they wanted me fired. And we lost the end of our third year to Virginia in the Omni, 109-65. And a lot of people like get rid of them. And Tom said, hell no. And we had recruited the best recruiting class that year, but they were only freshmen. Then the next year, we made a jump and won 24 games. I signed a new contract. So he believed in me again. And during the mid-'90s, after we had gone to 7 Final Fours in 9 years, I got a back injury. I came back too soon, and I really burned out. I had some physical and mental health issues where I had to take off for half a year. And I resigned. I went over to his house and resigned. And he said, I'm not accepting that. I'm like, you're going to get well. You're my coach. And I worked with one of my former presidents, Keith Brody, for 4 months. And I came back, and I came back better. But if there was not that belief those 3 times, then there wouldn't be more national championships. There wouldn't be Olympic gold medals. There wouldn't be 42 years at Duke and 11 years with the U.S. So along the way, people should allow people to help them. My thing is, I tell people all the time, don't be alone. Don't be alone. And we're in a time where people are more alone, I think, than ever, because they get consumed with social media, phone, and they don't share their feelings. And I was not alone. And I credit my wife immensely because we were partners and would tell me the truth. And it's always good if you can have some people around you who will tell you the truth. Not just when everything's going good, but when things are not going well.
Who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah, but in telling you the truth, if something is wrong, they're not criticizing you. We need to change what's wrong. And there's a belief that you can change it. It's not, you're not punishing somebody for doing it. Like, we all have things that go wrong. So that's being a human being. And if we accept the fact that things can go wrong, but if we have people who believe that we can make them go right, when we may not necessarily believe that to the level, I think that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah.
That was fascinating. I'll take us into a time machine back to March 1980. That was the date, that was the month of that introductory press conference. To paint the picture of the ACC at that time, a time that you considered the golden years of the league, Terry Holland is at Virginia, Dean Smith is at North Carolina, Lefty Driesell is at Maryland, Jim Valvano is at NC State.
We came the same year.
Yeah. I mean, these are coaches who would go on to establish themselves and their schools, and thus the ACC as a fixture of basketball and of college basketball. What was it like coming into the league at that time? I know you talked about it previously, but what is it like? What was it like?
Well, it was in some respects overwhelming because it's like moving into a neighborhood that you never knew even existed. And I can remember Coach Knight, who was my college coach, telling me, remember, you're not recruiting for Army. You know, like you have to change how you recruit. You have to broaden your vision, and you have to learn. You have to learn through experience, and experience is the best teacher. And we did not inherit a great, talented program compared, good, but there was a couple of recruiting classes that weren't at the level. So we had a rebuilding job to do. And I had a great president, Governor Sanford, who was magnificent here. He believed in me too. And he and Tom Butters knew that this was going to take a while. And you learn. Like my first full recruiting year, we did not have a good year. We recruited too many guys. So we changed our style of recruiting and our method. And it was a method then we used forever. And we didn't recruit as many, but we recruited them hard. We looked for talent, whether they could fit in our environment and character. And so we recruited talent with character. We didn't recruit talented characters. And as a result, Johnny Dawkins, Mark Allery, Jay Billis, Tommy Amaker, Quinn Snyder, we have a list of not just talented players, but really good guys. And they fit Duke. And we used that for the entire 4 decades. And it worked fairly well.
One thing about this amazing crop of coaches in the ACC at that time, you guys seemed to have great camaraderie amongst yourselves. You called it in a recent story in the News and Observer that Andrew Carter wrote. You called your relationship with Dean Smith one of the hidden things in the history of our league.
Right.
I'm wondering if you could expound on this camaraderie and also expound on your relationship with Dean.
Yeah, during the 80s, it was very competitive. And I don't know if envy is the right word, but, he was the guy, and that was the program. I mean, Dean was one of the great coaches of any sport of all time, and he built a program that was built to last. But during that time, coaches were not paid what they're paid today. Every coach who was coaching did it because they loved the game. They loved working with those kids, the relationships. So there was and the ACC, we functioned to help the conference and how we scheduled, there was a sense of teamwork while we're being competitive. We developed friendships. I mean, Bobby Cremins, Jim Valvano, he passed away 30 years ago. The last 4 months of his life, we spent 3 nights a week together in Duke Hospital. We were like brothers. Cremins and I are best friends. The guys, Terry Holland just passed, but he and his wife, Ann, were great friends with me and my wife. It wasn't just the coaches, it was the wives. ACC meetings, you had fun together. You got to know one another. Today's day, it's very territorial. There's not the collective camaraderie. I don't think there's any camaraderie, to be quite frank with you. And so it's great. With Dean, once we started winning at that level, that national championship level, I understood him better. Because I was experiencing it. And we became friends. And my wife and Linnea became good friends. Not that we went out to eat together or whatever, but there was some mutual respect. And we became friends. And with the so-called rivalry with Duke and Carolina, you're supposed to, I hate the word hate, but that's one word that I can hate. And people see that, but I've loved Dean Smith and respected the heck out of him. And Roy Williams and I developed a great relationship. So again, he was more old school too, because he was an assistant for Dean, and he started coaching the same way, and then achieved an amazing level of success. He too is one of the great coaches of all time.
This was the scene just moments before the starting lineups were announced. Both the teams arm in arm with a moment of silence, honoring the memory of the great Dean Smith. I think even the closest Tar Heel fans to Roy Williams would tell you that Mike Krzyzewski's statements in the aftermath of his passing were some of the most poignant made. Certainly he is walking in similar shoes to that of Dean Smith.
It's fascinating the parallels between you and Dean Smith. North Carolina fans didn't believe in him in his early times.
You're right.
He was hung in effigy. He pulled into a parking lot, and there he was. And you literally submitted a resignation letter to the AD who hired you in the 90s. I mean, those parallels are pretty remarkable.
Yeah, they're great. I love that, and that's why the programs are very similar. Especially, what Dean did, and I think we've been able to do it. You have tremendous loyalty from your players and your former players. It's a family. You hear that word tossed around a lot. It's not necessarily appropriate for everybody, but it is for our two programs. And he did that, and I admired that. And that's what we tried to do. It's called not having a team, but having a program. If you have a program, you develop a culture. And so I'm not saying our cultures are exactly the same, but we both have really good cultures. And that cultures based on values and organizations that are based on values stand the test of time.
I could talk about that forever.
There are books that are written about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We'll be right back. Welcome back.
You've seen a lot of greatness at Duke. There are, when I think of three transcendent characters in the college basketball history, the college basketball lore, you coached three of them, and they're transcendent in three different generations and for three separate reasons. I like to say the three that I think of immediately, and I'm sure that you can think of many more, are Christian Laettner, J.J. Redick, and Zion Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about those three individually. So, Christian Laettner, I'm seeing a Sports Illustrated poster right behind you that says "Devil of a Team," and it's Christian Laettner having his bravado. What was it like coaching him?
No, it's great coaching Christian. I will say before we talk about it that Johnny Dawkins was the guy who got us started.
Here goes the block shot. You know that Rivers going to take it. Up goes Johnny. All ball. Johnny Dawkins blocks David Rivers. And Duke, 75. Notre Dame, 74.
If he didn't come, he was the first great player to come, and his team was within a couple points of winning a national championship his senior year. And that started it. But in the history of the game, Christian is probably one of the top three players in the history of the college game. And he was the ultimate winner, 4 Final Fours, 2 national championships. In order to win a national championship, you have to win 6 games. In his 4 years, he was 21-2.
There's the pass to Laettner. Puts it up. Yes!
He hit 2 last-second shots to put us into Final Fours. He's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NCAA tournament. And he believed in me, and really the ultimate winner. And he was one of the easiest guys to coach because he worked and wanted to win at the highest level, and was a leader. Sometimes an abrasive leader, but at that time you could be a little bit more abrasive than you can today.
Is there an enduring memory outside of that shot that gets played every March? Is there an enduring memory?
Just his confidence, like he was never afraid. and ever. And, you know, he came through. I mean, that one shot is a great shot, but he came through all the time. And, I can't think of anyone who's had a bigger impact on our program than Christian. He really wasn't the most talented player because Grant Hill or Zion Williams, they're some athletes, but he was the biggest winner.
And so then the next player I want to ask you about is J.J. Redick. For someone who grew up in the Triangle, who loved college basketball, and who grew up who had a basketball consciousness, who formed a basketball consciousness while J.J. Redick didn't miss from the outside. He was someone to aspire to. Did you feel that while J.J. was in school?
Oh, yeah. I loved coaching J.J. And I can remember seeing him in high school the first time and saying, what great heart, talent, cockiness, and he could really shoot. I think in the history of our conference, he's the best shooter.
JJ with 27. He's a three-point shot away. Melky only sets the pick, and there it is. The all-time Duke leading scorer, JJ Redick.
In the history of college basketball, Curry, he's in a small room. The all-time leading scorer here. I feel badly that we were not able to win a national championship with him because he's of that ilk. But I mean, he was so much fun to coach, and he earned the freedom to make his reads, and no one worked harder before he got the shot. People talk about shot fake. He got open a lot because he ran his defender into the ground. And he did things that were incredible. And the shots, he could shoot turning. There aren't many guys, a lot of guys can shoot. He can hit turning. And his shots were deflating for an opponent. When I coached the Olympic team, Durant did that for us. He'd hit 2 or 3 from 35 feet, and the game was over. And JJ did that for us, and so many defenses were put out there to stop him, and he came through.
He also enters the pro game, and people kind of don't give him respect, or perhaps that's harsh, but he isn't expected to have this long, enduring career in the NBA, and then he does. Were you sitting back saying, I'm not surprised?
Well, he actually, his first couple of years got knocked back, and Stan Van Gundy, his coach in Orlando, really worked him hard, and JJ would credit him immensely in that. And in between years there, his early years, he came back to Duke. He had to become a better athlete. He wasn't going to jump that much higher, but he could move quicker, run faster. And he spent about 7-8 weeks here. And when he went back to Orlando, he was the leader, not in jumping, but the leader in all their tests.
Not this time. Inside, here is Redick on a jam.
I'll tell you what, I didn't know Redick could even dunk.
And that's who JJ has been. That's why he had a 15-year pro career. Everyone wants to win. Not everybody wants to prepare to win. And the great players really prepare to win. They prepare. I mean, with the U.S. team, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, these are ultimate preparers. JJ was like that. He had routines, times, number of shots every day. And so there was not wasted movement or wasted time. And because the game he was preparing for, there's no wasted movement and wasted time. So he prepared that way.
So you used the word heart, you used the word preparation for Christian Laettner and J.J. Redick. For Zion Williamson, I don't know words to encapsulate perhaps supernova, perhaps phenomenon. When he came here, it was the ESPN practically ran a Zion Williamson beat. What was coaching him like?
No, I love coaching Zion. Zion was a great player to coach. He was coachable. He wanted to be coached. The really outstanding players want to be coached. And I always coached my best players the hardest. And if they, reciprocated, then great things were going to happen. For Zion, he came in with R.J. Barrett, Cam Reddish, and Trey Jones. And so it was a great class. And he was a team player. And same like R.J. R.J. had been rated ahead of him a little bit. They just blended because of their personalities. And Zion's just a phenomenal athlete. And when he was at Duke, he was in great shape. He got himself in great shape. And when he got hurt, it wasn't because he wasn't in shape. His shoe blew out. And sometimes in the history of the game, it's not just many teams, an injury late is ends up being a deciding factor of whether it's tough to win the whole thing. So everything's got to go pretty well. And that knee injury had knocked him out for 3 weeks. And he came back, but we never at the level that he was, or we were, when he went out. And so we lost in the final 8. Michigan State beat us, and we weren't able to go to the Final 4. And but I felt that was a team that, if we stay healthy, have a really good chance of winning the whole thing. They were a fun group to coach, and he was a great kid. And with all the attention that he had on him.
Lost the basketball, and here come the Blue Devils. Barrett lays it up. Williamson throws it down.
To still have fun. He never performed with pressure. Really kind of crazy for an 18-year-old kid with the social media world. They're different. Things changed. Laettner, Redick did not have that. Zion had that, and kids have that now, and you have to be able to handle all that.
That's kind of what I was going to ask. Secondly, had you ever seen that before?
No, there's a phenomenon, and because he's unique, and we already have a brand, so it's not like, and there are people who really wanted us to win and really didn't want us to win. But whenever we were on, there were a lot of people watching. And then all of a sudden you're watching him and you're saying, oh, I haven't seen anybody like that. And our first game that year, we were lights out. So that added, talk about putting wood on the fire, there was a big fire around our team the whole year. And I was proud of our guys because they never looked at it as pressure.
Other greatness that you've seen, there was one great moment at the tail end of your career that I would be remiss if I didn't bring up. It was, you were a part of one of the greatest moments in sports history that North Carolina has ever seen in that Final Four matchup with UNC. It was your final game.
The hottest team arguably going into the tournament, and they have continued on here, ending the career of Coach K.
After 42 years, what are you going to miss most?
I'll find out.
No, it's my responsibility right now. I'm only thinking of my team. I'll be fine. I want to make sure that my team is good.
Over a year has passed. I'm curious how you look back on that whole experience now.
No, I feel very fortunate that I was in that moment. I mean, one, I'm ending my career. I could end my career not making the NCAA tournament, losing in the first round. Our run in the NCAA tournament was magical. And the basketball gods were good to be able to give that, to be in that arena. And I call it being fortunate to be in the arena and against two of the great programs in the history of the game. Obviously, we would have loved to have won, but the opportunity to be in that moment was terrific. And I don't look at any, I regret that we weren't able to play for the national championship. So for me, it wasn't a Duke Carolina thing. We're trying to win a national championship. And we're there in the semifinal game against another great team. And you're within a play of it going either way. And they made that play. And so I've been doing this a long time. To have that opportunity is tremendous. And again, I was proud of my guys. And then it's over. And what a way, again, it's not, storybook endings don't happen that often. And it would have been a storybook ending to win the whole thing. But to get to that position was, I'm very proud of that.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Racing, pull up, three, no good, rebound, Carolina! And the fairy tale ride for the Tar Heels continues. And Coach K's legendary career has come to a close.
I've been blessed to be in the arena. And when you're in the arena, you're either going to come out feeling great or you're going to feel agony. But you always will feel great about being in the arena. And I'm sure that that's the thing when I'll look back that I'll miss. I won't be in the arena anymore. But damn, I was in the arena for a long time. And these kids, made my last time in the arena an amazing one.
We'll be right back. Welcome back.
Your replacement, John Shire,
right,
a player that you adored, have said that you adore. He's 33 years old, or he was when he took the mantle. You were 33 when you took the mantle at Duke. Life has changed, society has changed, college basketball has changed. I'm curious, what challenges does he face that perhaps a 33-year-old Mike Krzyzewski didn't?
Well, we have a program already, and we had a plan. John was on my staff for 8 years, and I coached him. He's a national champion for 4 years. And when I knew I was going to retire, I knew a year in advance. And some people, they say that I wanted a farewell tour. Everyone else made it the farewell tour. We had a succession plan. And the succession plan was John was ready to introduce him a year in advance. And he did not have to coach a game for 17 months. And so the plan was where I would not recruit. He could recruit actually 2 classes where those kids knew they were playing for him. And he could learn even more knowing that he's going to be the head coach. And so when he took over running, not trying to figure it out. I mean, he was ready, but he also prepared every kid that was coming in. We had 2 great recruiting classes, and he did an unbelievable job with that. But we had a plan. These things don't just, well, I believe in succession. That's my military background. And I thought I know we had a great plan. And it wouldn't be a great plan unless John was terrific. And he is. So it's worked out really well. And I try to help behind the scenes, not in coaching his team, but in giving him any advice I can, being that head coach, the things that now come about in running, not just not a team, like we're kind of like a Fortune 500 company, with all the demands that have been placed. And, a little bit of advice in that regard helps.
You mentioned your succession plan. The succession plan comes after 42 years at Duke. Well, you did have offers to leave. And you had offers to go coach the NBA. You obviously love the pro game. As you've said before, you coached the Olympic team. What made you stay?
Well, when we talked about the early years with Tom Butters and that, one, I love Duke. I love the state of North Carolina. I mean, we are North Carolinians. We've been here for 43 years. This is a great state, great people, and it's beautiful. And so it would have to, I've never even, although I've been offered, just like a lot of coaches, dozens of college jobs. I mean, I'm not, but there's so many people who have been offered. I never even spent a second thinking about a college job. A few times I have with pros. And, but at the end of the day, I loved college. I loved Duke. I didn't feel like it was right. Actually, probably the closest I came was in 2005 with the Lakers. And, a lot of money, although by that time you're making a lot of money, not as much as they offered, but lifestyle and whatever. And I turned it down. And then a few months later, although you don't get paid for it, I was offered to be the first national team coach. A lot of people don't realize before that there was just like an Olympic coach, a world. There was no continuity. So it's a 4-year commitment to being the U.S. national coach. And we had 3 of those commitments. And so I got my so-called fix with the NBA, coaching some of the greatest players in the history of the game.
2005, who were the Lakers at that point? Who were the faces?
The Lakers had just been, Shaq and Kobe kind of had their divorce. And but Kobe was there, and I knew Kobe. We recruited him, and in 1990, when Dave Gavitt took over, Dave Gavitt was one of the great men in the history of sport, and he offered me the Celtics job. And growing up, those two are iconic brands, the Celtics and the Lakers. And really one of the first questions I asked was, if I'm going to take it, could I meet with Kobe and Shaq to see if we can get them? I knew I'd be a better coach if I did take it, if both of them were still on the same team. I think they would make up for any of the mistakes, or a lot of the mistakes that I might make in transition.
I'd love your take, just speaking generally about college basketball right now. I'd love your take on the changing of the guard that has occurred in the ACC over the past couple of years. You retired. Roy Williams did so a year before you. Jim Boeheim, a good friend of yours, did so a year after you. And I'm curious, why is this happening? Is it a function of time? Is it being accelerated by the challenges in college basketball today? Name, image, likeness, transfer portal? Or is it just, as I said, this is life, this is how it goes?
Well, I think some of it has to do with a few of us got old at the same time. So we didn't get out because the game changed. We got out because you spent 45, 50 years doing it, and you're in your 70s, and there may be some other things you need to do, or you don't want to keep up with that pace. But the ACC historically has been an amazing conference. I think it's gotten a lot of success without having to work at it, like with marketing, being strategic, and I think it's caught up to us a little bit, and where you have to treat it as a total entity and look at it. And basketball came easy for the ACC, especially with two of the major brands, with Duke and North Carolina in it. Yet the 2 or 3 games we played every year were 2 or 3 of the top 5 viewed games. You know, the needle was moved all the time by a Carolina game against somebody, a Duke game against somebody. And you can take for granted that your job's already done. You know, or the only decision you have to make is to put those games in the sweeps. The sweeps are when the TV people get their ratings. And so we're going to have big ratings. We're going to put those games. So our games against Carolina were always in February and March. And there has to be more strategic thinking in that regard. And then because basketball has become so territorial, and with money, name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, that there's not the camaraderie amongst coaches. It's called common ground. And there's not as much, the ground you're looking at is your ground. And in order to, like the SEC football is common ground. You know, like you have to develop common ground. And how do you do that? It's a function of leadership and working together.
And perhaps this is an obvious follow-up, but why is it important to share common ground, to have North Carolina help Duke, Duke help North Carolina? Well, why is that important?
Well, overall, what's most important is the game. You know, and why are you in the game? Are you in the game because you love the game? You want to perpetuate the game? Or are you in the game to make money, get fame? If you take care of the game and promote it and advance it, you will get money and fame. If those are the things that you start off with, you may not get it. And it's just what's happening in sport right now, and in college basketball especially. And there's really no leadership from the so-called parent organization, the NCAA. College basketball needs to be run as a business. It's $1 billion business. It's the only thing that runs the NCAA. Football does not run the NCAA. Football runs conferences and make millions of dollars. The NCAA does not get 1 penny from football. And so their main source of revenue is men's college basketball. My feeling is you should combine men's and women's college basketball, make it an autonomous group, have leadership structure, marketing, and run it like a business. But what do I know?
I think a lot of people would say you know a lot. Final question. Now that your career is over, now that you are going on these speaking engagements, is there a definitive autobiography in your future?
No, we've been hit by documentaries, books, and my wife and I, when we looked at this year to begin with, I said, I want to figure out like a new version, but I don't want to be committed. I don't want to do TV. I don't want to sign contracts where I have to be someplace unless it's a single speaking engagement. And I want to figure it out. And we figured it out really well this year I call it being an independent contractor. And where I only have to depend on me. I can help my school, my family, and whatever. And I know I'm responsible for what I'm doing. I really don't have to depend on anyone else. And that freedom to do that has been terrific. I've loved this past year. I do not miss coaching basketball. I've squeezed every little bit out of that. I love the game. I miss relationships with players, but I'm glad I have better relationships with my grandkids. And I'm a curious person. I'm a lifelong learner. I've learned so much this year. Not how to try to beat Boeheim zone or Royce run and jump or whatever. Those days are past, but learning about leadership and teamwork has been fascinating for me.
Mike Krzyzewski, the independent contractor. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
All right. No, I've enjoyed it. Thank you for doing such a great job.
Thanks so much for listening and for supporting local journalism. Find more on these interviews, including special video features, at charlotteobserver.com/sportslegends. And pre-order the Sports Legends of the Carolinas book at sportslegendsbook.com. And if you like what we're doing out here, please consider a digital subscription to the Charlotte Observer. Sports Legends of the Carolinas is a product of the Charlotte Observer. It's hosted by me, Alex Zietlow, and Scott Fowler. And it's produced by Lou May Ali Sally and Jeff Seiner. The executive producer of the Sports Legends franchise is Kata Stevens. The sports editor of the Charlotte Observer is Lydia Craver, and our executive editor is Raina Cash. The director of audio at McClatchy is Davin Coburn, and McClatchy Audio's interns are Zoe Williams and Christina Silvestri. See you next time.